The New Jersey crime boss came to Newark Airport to meet the mafia bride who could make his empire untouchable. Instead, he saw the woman he had abandoned 8 months earlier, 7 months pregnant, bruised and looking over her shoulder like death had followed her into the terminal. Dominic Vale had spent his life believing power could solve anything. But no money, no gun, and no army of loyal men could erase the fear in Claire Bennett's eyes when she saw him. She wasn't waiting for him. She was running from someone who knew every secret inside his organization. This is more than a story about revenge. It is about betrayal, control, guilt, and the terrible price of choosing power over the one person who trusted you. Stay until the end, because every choice Dominic makes will change who survives. Like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. 6 hours before Dominic Vale saw Claire Bennett standing beneath the white lights of Newark Airport, he was alone above the Hudson River preparing to marry a woman he did not love. Rain pressed against the windows of his Jersey City penthouse in long silver lines. Across the river, Manhattan rose through the morning fog, its towers fading into the low clouds as if the city itself were trying to disappear. Dominic stood before a wall-sized screen showing the roads, warehouses, and shipping terminals that formed the skeleton of his empire. Colored routes crossed the map from Newark to Philadelphia, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Chicago. Small lights marked customs officers, freight companies, judges, union leaders, and police officials whose cooperation had been purchased over the years. To anyone else, it might have looked like a transportation network. Dominic saw veins. Money moved through them. Guns moved through them. Information moved through them. When one route closed, another opened. When one man became unreliable, another took his place. Nothing in Dominic's world was allowed to exist without a purpose. Marcus Reed entered without knocking. He carried 2 black folders and a cup of coffee he had not bought for himself. "You have 20 minutes before we leave," Marcus said. Dominic did not turn. Victoria's flight is early. Her father moved the departure time. He does not enjoy waiting even when he is not the one traveling. Marcus set the coffee near Dominic's hand. Dominic glanced at it. Black. No sugar. Marcus had known how he drank it for 11 years. That knowledge had once felt like loyalty. This morning it felt like routine. Marcus opened the first folder. The Russo trucks are already moving through Ohio. Once the agreement is signed, they will take over distribution west of Pittsburgh. We maintain control of the ports they handle the inland routes, and everyone between here and Chicago pays one organization instead of 2. Dominic touched the screen and enlarged the Port Newark terminal. How many drivers? 180 under direct contract. Another 400 through smaller carriers. Customs covered. Union covered. Federal attention. Marcus smiled, interested but not inspired. Dominic finally looked at him. Marcus's hair had gone gray at the temples during their years together. He was broad-shouldered, careful with his suits, and calm in the way men became calm after surviving enough violence. He had been beside Dominic when the Vale organization was little more than 3 warehouses, 2 corrupt inspectors, and a reputation inherited from a dead father. Marcus had helped turn it into something that reached across state lines. He had taken bullets for Dominic. He had buried men for Dominic. He had stood outside hospital rooms, courtrooms, and churches without ever asking whether the order he had been given was fair. Dominic trusted him as much as he trusted anyone. That was not the same as saying he trusted him completely. Dominic trusted no one completely. "The marriage announcement happens Thursday night," Marcus said. "Anthony Russo wants it made before dinner. He can want whatever he likes. He wants the room to understand the alliance is permanent. The contracts make it permanent. Contracts can be burned. So can wedding photographs." Marcus watched him for a moment. You could pretend to be pleased. I am pleased. You look like you are preparing for an execution. Dominic lifted the coffee and took a slow drink. Maybe I am. Marcus laughed once, but Dominic did not. The second folder contained photographs of Victoria Russo arriving at a private airfield in Chicago. She wore a cream coat, dark glasses, and the expression of a woman accustomed to being observed. Victoria was beautiful in the disciplined way wealth often produced beauty. Nothing about her appeared accidental. Her hair, her posture, her clothes, even the distance she kept between herself and the men around her had been chosen with care. Dominic had met her 4 times. They had shared 2 dinners, 1 negotiation, and a private conversation, in which she had told him exactly what she expected from their marriage. Privacy. Respect. No public humiliation. No children until the business arrangement was stable. No attempt to control her personal accounts. She had not asked for love. That was one reason Dominic had agreed. The telephone on the table vibrated. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. Dominic answered. "You are awake," she said. "I usually am by 9. It is 8:40. Then you caught me during a rare moment of weakness." Her quiet laugh came through the speaker. Behind it, Dominic could hear the steady hum of the aircraft. "My father wants the announcement made before the first course," Victoria said. "He thinks people listen better before they begin drinking. Your father thinks people listen because he is speaking. He is usually correct." Dominic looked toward the river. "When do you land?" "Just before 3. I assume you will be there?" "Yes." "Personally?" "Yes, Victoria. I only ask because men in your position often confuse sending 6 armed cars with making an effort." Dominic heard Marcus moving through the room behind him. "I will be there." "Good." There was a pause. Victoria's voice changed. The warmth disappeared from it, leaving only business. "My father asked about the accountant." Dominic's fingers tightened slightly around the phone. "What accountant?" "Please do not insult me before we are married." He said nothing. Victoria continued. "Claire Bennett had access to your private accounts. She knew the legal companies, the false companies, and the companies that existed only on paper. Then she disappeared. She no longer works for me." "That was not my question. You did not ask a question. Can she be used against you?" Rain tapped the glass. Dominic looked at the map on the wall, but he was no longer seeing roads or terminals. He saw Claire sitting at a warehouse desk beneath a broken lamp, her sleeves pushed to her elbows, pencil trapped between her teeth as she studied a page of numbers. He saw the way she looked at him when she knew he was lying. "She is not a problem," he said. "You sound certain." "I made sure of it." The words came easily. That disturbed him more than the lie. Victoria was silent for several seconds. "My father believes personal attachments make men careless. Your father has been married 3 times. He considers that evidence." Dominic almost smiled. Victoria lowered her voice. "I am not asking because I am jealous. I have no interest in competing with a memory. I am asking because once our organizations are joined, every weakness you carry becomes mine. She is not a weakness." "Then why did you remove her?" Dominic's gaze hardened. "I will see you at the airport." Victoria understood the conversation was over. "Wear a tie. You told me ties make men look nervous. They do. I want to know whether you are." The call ended. Marcus looked at Dominic's open collar. "You listened to her." "I decided against the tie before she called." "Of course." Dominic set down the phone. Marcus closed the folder. "We should go." Dominic did not move. On the table beside the Russo documents sat an old brass key. It opened nothing in the penthouse. It had belonged to Claire's office. Dominic had found it in a drawer 3 months after she left. He had meant to throw it away. Instead, it remained beside his business files, moved from one surface to another by cleaning staff who knew better than to discard anything that belonged to him. Marcus followed his gaze. You still have that. It is a key. It is a key to a room that no longer exists. Dominic picked it up and placed it in the drawer. Then it cannot matter. Marcus said nothing. 2 years earlier, Claire Bennett had entered Dominic's world through a mistake in a freight invoice. She had been 29, recently hired by one of the legal shipping companies Dominic used to hide his less legal operations. Her background check had described her as cautious, highly qualified, and free of connections that could create pressure. It had not mentioned that she was stubborn enough to remain in a warehouse office until 2 a.m. because $3 million refused to balance. Dominic had found her surrounded by open ledgers and cold coffee. You are still here, he had said. Claire looked up from the desk. She showed no surprise at finding the head of the organization standing behind her. $3 million is missing. It is not missing. Then it has developed legs. Dominic stepped closer. Most employees became nervous when he entered a room. They lowered their voices, adjusted their posture, and began explaining things he had not asked them to explain. Claire simply turned the ledger toward him. These invoices were approved by the same office, she said. The companies have different names, but the account numbers lead to the same bank. Dominic looked at the page. You traced them. I tried to. The final account is protected. You stayed here alone to investigate a protected account connected to my company. She leaned back in the chair. I stayed because somebody stole $3 million and assumed no one would notice. People who notice things in my business do not always live longer. Is that a warning? It is information. Claire met his eyes. Then here is some information for you. One of your senior managers is either stealing from you or too incompetent to realize someone else is doing it. No one had spoken to Dominic that way since his father died. He should have fired her. Instead, he pulled a chair toward the desk. Show me. They worked until sunrise. Claire followed the money through shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. Dominic gave her access to records no ordinary employee was permitted to see. By morning, they had the name of the captain responsible. The man had worked for Dominic's father. He had attended family dinners, funerals, and weddings. He had once carried Dominic out of a building during a police raid. None of it saved him. Dominic handled the betrayal before noon. Claire never asked what happened to the man. She did ask why Dominic had trusted her with the private records. You wanted the truth, he said. So do most people. No, most people want a version of the truth that leaves them comfortable. Claire closed the final account. And you? I want the version that leaves me alive. She studied him. That sounds exhausting. It was the first time anyone had looked at his power and seen the cost of it. After that night, Dominic began noticing her everywhere. Claire did not dress like the women who attended his private dinners. She wore plain blouses, dark pants, and practical shoes. She kept her hair tied back when she worked and removed the pins one by one when she was tired. She did not flatter him. She did not fear his silence. When she disagreed with him, she did so directly. One winter evening, Dominic approved a shipment through a warehouse in Bayonne. Claire reviewed the insurance records and discovered the building had been rented through a company connected to a federal informant. She walked into a meeting of 12 men and placed the documents in front of him. This route is compromised. One of Dominic's captains laughed. You interrupt meetings now. Claire looked at him. I interrupt bad decisions. The room went silent. Dominic read the papers and canceled the shipment. Later, when they were alone, he asked why she had entered without permission. You were about to send 6 men into a trap. You could have called Marcus. I did. He said the meeting was not to be disturbed. Dominic looked toward the closed office door. Then you ignored him. Yes. Why? Claire crossed her arms. because I do not want to watch you die just to prove you are incapable of being surprised. That night, a storm cut power to the warehouse while they were riding the elevator. The emergency lights turned the narrow space red. Claire stood beside him, close enough for Dominic to smell rain in her hair. Neither of them spoke. The elevator remained suspended between floors. Dominic felt the restraint between them tighten until it became unbearable. Claire looked up. "You are staring." "I know. That usually makes people nervous." "Are you nervous?" "Yes." She did not move away. He kissed her before he could decide whether it was a mistake. Claire's hand caught the front of his coat. For one violent second, all the discipline Dominic had spent his life building disappeared. When the elevator began moving again, they stepped apart. The doors opened. Neither of them left. Their relationship existed in spaces no one else entered. Late nights in the warehouse office, quiet dinners delivered after midnight, a hotel room in Manhattan where Dominic used a false name even though everyone working there knew exactly who he was. Claire never asked him to promise a future. Dominic never offered one. Still, she left books at his penthouse. He kept her preferred tea in the kitchen. She learned that he slept badly after thunderstorms because his father had been killed during one. He learned that she called her younger sister every Sunday and lied about the work she did. For nearly a year, they lived inside the illusion that something could remain secret simply because it was never named. Then Anthony Russo made his offer. The Russos wanted access to Dominic's ports. Dominic wanted their inland routes. The alliance would make both organizations more profitable and far harder to attack. Anthony's condition was marriage. Marcus brought the proposal to Dominic's office. "It is not about romance," Marcus said. "It is about blood. Russo wants the next generation tied to both families." Dominic stood near the window. "What does Victoria want?" "The same thing you want. Stability." And Claire Marcus did not answer immediately. That silence was enough. Dominic turned. "What about her?" "She knows every account. She built half the safeguards around those accounts. She is also the only person in this organization you treat differently." Dominic's expression remained flat. Marcus continued. "If Russo sees it, Holloway sees it. The Irish see it. The Albanians see it. Every man waiting for you to make a mistake sees it. She has never betrayed me. That is not the danger. What is?" Marcus stepped closer. "If someone put a gun against Claire's head, how much of this would you burn to save her?" Dominic looked at him. Marcus nodded once. "That is the answer." That evening, Dominic called Claire into his office. The severance agreement was already waiting on the desk. Claire entered carrying a file. "I found another discrepancy in the Philadelphia account. Sit down." She stopped. Dominic did not usually ask her to sit in that voice. "What happened?" "Nothing. That is not true." He pushed the agreement toward her. Claire looked at the first page. Her face became still. "What is this? You are leaving the company." She turned another page. The payment was large enough to support her for years. "Why you know too much? I knew too much yesterday." Dominic kept his hands flat against the desk. "The circumstances have changed." Claire looked toward the Russo documents near his elbow. Understanding reached her slowly. "This is about Chicago. It is about protecting the organization." "No." Her voice was quiet. "It is about protecting yourself." Dominic said nothing. Claire moved closer to the desk. "You are afraid that caring about me gives someone power over you. The decision is made. You could have spoken to me." There was nothing to discuss. There was everything to discuss. She searched his face for the man she knew from dark rooms, shared meals, and nights when he let himself speak honestly. He gave her nothing. Claire looked at the severance package again. "You think money makes this clean? I think it gives you a life outside this organization. You think you get to decide what my life is." I am deciding what happens inside my organization." Her eyes brightened, but she refused to cry. "What happens to us?" Dominic forced himself to hold her gaze. "There is no us." The lie cut through both of them. Claire's fingers curled around the edge of the desk. "You do not believe that. It does not matter what I believe. It matters to me. That is why this has to end." For a moment she could not speak. Then she straightened. She left the agreement on the desk. "I will not take your money. You earned it. No, I earned the right to be told the truth. Claire." She stepped back before he could reach for her. "You do not get to erase me and call it strategy." She walked out. Dominic did not follow. He stood behind his desk until the sound of her footsteps disappeared. 3 weeks later, Claire learned she was pregnant. She sat alone in the bathroom of her small apartment, holding the test beneath the pale light above the mirror. Outside, traffic moved through the rain. A neighbor argued with someone in the hallway. Claire stared at the two lines until they blurred. Her first call was to Dominic's office. Marcus answered. "Vale Industries. I need to speak with Dominic." There was a pause. "Claire." "Yes. Dominic is unavailable. It is important. I will tell him you called." He never called back. Claire tried again 2 days later. Marcus answered once more. "Dominic was clear," he said. "He does not want contact." Claire gripped the phone. "Did he say that?" "Yes." She closed her eyes. "Tell him I understand." Marcus's voice softened. "You should move on, Claire." The call ended. Within a month, Claire's savings began to disappear. Freight companies refused to hire her. Some ended interviews as soon as they saw the Vale name on her history. Others offered excuses that were too polite to be honest. She had handled money for Dominic Vale. That made her dangerous. It also made people afraid. Her landlord sent an eviction notice. Medical bills arrived. Claire sold her car. Then an employment offer came from a logistics company in Albany. The salary was generous. The work involved auditing freight accounts. Housing was included. The company was owned through 3 layers of legal names, but Claire followed them to their source. Grant Holloway. She knew enough about him to be afraid. She also knew her rent was overdue, and there was a child growing inside her. Claire accepted the position. In the present, Dominic sat across from her inside the armored SUV while the airport faded behind them. Rain moved across the tinted windows. Claire kept one hand over her stomach and the other near the emergency handle on the door. Dominic looked at the bruise beneath her jaw. "You called my office twice." "When after I found out I was pregnant." He felt something cold settle beneath his ribs. "I never received a message." Claire turned toward him. Marcus answered both times. Dominic's eyes moved to the front of the vehicle where Noah sat beside the driver. Noah looked back through the mirror. Claire's voice was tired. "The second time he told me you had been clear. He said you never wanted to hear from me again." "I did not say that." Then he lied. Dominic took out his phone. 12 missed calls from Marcus filled the screen. A message waited beneath them. "Victoria is furious. Anthony wants an explanation. Call me now." Dominic stared at Marcus's name. 11 years of loyalty sat behind those letters. He turned the phone face down. Claire watched him. "Do not destroy your organization because you feel guilty." Dominic looked at the marks around her throat. "I am beginning to think the organization was already destroying itself." The SUV left the city and entered the rain-soaked highway. Claire lowered her eyes to the damaged suitcase at her feet. Inside the torn lining of Claire's suitcase beneath a seam she had sewn by hand rested the proof of how far the betrayal had already reached. Dominic did not know that yet. He only knew the woman sitting across from him had returned from 8 months of silence carrying Bruises, a child, and the kind of fear that did not come from one bad night. The armored SUV moved south beneath a sky the color of wet concrete. Rain swept across the highway in silver sheets. Newark disappeared behind them, replaced by industrial yards, freight depots, and long rows of warehouses Dominic controlled through names that never appeared beside his own. Claire watched every exit. Each time a black vehicle appeared in the next lane, her shoulders tightened. Dominic noticed. "Who was following you at the airport?" She kept her eyes on the window. "Men who work for Grant Holloway." Noah turned slightly in the passenger seat. The Albany dealer, Claire, gave him a tired glance. "He has people in more places than Albany." Dominic studied her face. Holloway had been an inconvenience for years. He controlled narcotics routes through upstate New York and parts of western Massachusetts. He lacked Dominic's discipline, but he compensated with brutality. He changed allies, often killed without strategy, and surrounded himself with men too frightened to question him. Dominic had never considered him a true rival. That assumption suddenly felt careless. "How long were you with him?" Dominic asked. Claire's hand tightened over her stomach. "I worked for him for 7 months. Worked. At first." The answer left a cold silence in the vehicle. Dominic leaned forward. "What does that mean?" Claire looked at him. "It means I am not telling you this while I am trapped in a moving car. You are not trapped. The doors are locked." Dominic pressed the control beside him. The locks clicked open. Noah looked back. Dominic ignored him. Claire glanced at the door, then at Dominic. "You could still stop me before I reached the shoulder." "I could. And would you?" "No." She searched his face. He held her gaze without moving. Claire looked away first. "I am not going to a hospital. You need a doctor. I need a place Holloway does not know about. I have private clinics. He knows which clinics you use." Dominic's jaw hardened. "How? He knows everything you use?" Noah shifted in his seat. Dominic asked, how much Claire gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "Your warehouses, your drivers, your judges, your customs contacts, the names of your legal companies, the addresses where your men send their wives when something goes wrong." Noah's expression changed. "That information is compartmentalized." It was. Dominic's eyes moved toward the suitcase. "What did you bring with you?" Claire pulled the coat more tightly around herself. "Not here." He watched her for another second, then looked toward Noah. "Change the destination." Noah took out his phone. "Where the Colt's Neck house?" Claire's attention sharpened. "What house?" "A property no one uses. Who knows about it?" Noah. 2 security men. And Marcus Dominic did not answer immediately. Claire understood. "Then Holloway might know." "He does not. You cannot be certain." "I can be certain of a few things. You were certain Marcus gave you my messages." The words struck the space between them. Dominic's face remained still, but Noah looked away. Dominic said, "The house is not registered to me. It has never been used for business. There are no staff members living there." Claire studied him carefully. "One doctor. You choose the doctor. I know someone who is not connected to the organization. Call her." Dominic nodded once. Noah made the arrangements. They left the highway and turned onto narrower roads lined with winter trees. The farther they moved from the city, the more the landscape opened into fields, horse farms, and gated estates hidden behind stone walls. Claire's breathing gradually slowed. Dominic looked at the blood near her ankle. "How did that happen?" She followed his gaze. "I climbed through a broken window. Where Holloway's house. You escaped from his property." "Yes." "How?" Claire looked down at the damaged suitcase. "Because he thought pregnancy made me weak." The Colt's Neck house stood at the end of a private road beyond a grove of bare oak trees. It was built from dark stone and cedar large enough to be comfortable but too restrained to attract attention. The gate opened before the SUV arrived. Two security men waited near the entrance. Dominic stepped out first. Claire remained inside. He looked back at her but did not reach for her. "You can stay in the car until the doctor arrives." She stared at the house. "Are there cameras, inside number locks on the bedroom doors?" "Only from the inside. Windows. They open." The questions were practical. The fear beneath them was not. Dominic held the door but kept his distance. Claire took the medical kit and climbed out without accepting his hand. Her injured ankle gave beneath her. Dominic caught her before she struck the pavement. The instant his arm moved around her waist, Claire froze. Not startled, frozen. Her breath stopped. Her fingers dug into his sleeve. Dominic released her at once. "I am sorry." Claire steadied herself against the vehicle. He had apologized to very few people in his life. The words sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Noah brought a cane from the house. Claire accepted it from him and walked inside under her own power. The living room smelled faintly of cedar and cold stone. A fire had been started before their arrival. Soft light spread across leather furniture, pale rugs and wide windows overlooking the trees. Claire stopped near the center of the room. Her eyes moved to every doorway. Dominic saw her counting them. The doctor arrived 20 minutes later. Dr. Maya Ellison was in her early 40s with calm eyes and a gray medical bag. She had treated the sister of one of Noah's men years earlier and had never asked why the payment came in cash. Maya looked at Dominic. "I need privacy." He stepped toward the hallway. Claire said, "No armed men outside the door." Dominic glanced at Noah. Noah moved the security team to the far side of the house. Dominic remained near the stairs. Claire looked at him. "You too." His expression tightened. Maya waited. Dominic went into the kitchen and closed the door. For 30 minutes he stood beside the window without touching the coffee Noah placed near him. He could hear muted voices through the wall. Then came a sound he did not recognize at first. Fast, steady, alive. Dominic looked toward the closed door. Noah followed his gaze. "The heartbeat," Noah said quietly. Dominic did not answer. The sound continued for several seconds, then stopped. Something inside his chest moved with it. Maya entered the kitchen later and removed her gloves. "The baby is stable." Dominic released a breath he had not realized he was holding. And Claire dehydrated. Underweight. Her ankle is badly sprained but not broken. The bruising around her neck is older than the marks on her wrists. Dominic's eyes darkened. Maya continued before he could speak. "She needs food rest and as little stress as possible. If she experiences severe pain, bleeding, or contractions, she goes to a hospital. That is not negotiable. She refuses hospitals. She may have a reason. She does." Maya looked directly at him. "Then give her control over every decision that can safely be hers." Dominic said nothing. Maya lowered her voice. "A locked door feels the same from both sides, Mr. Vale. It does not matter how expensive the room is." She left him in the kitchen. Claire sat near the fireplace with a blanket over her legs. Her coat had been removed. The long-sleeved shirt beneath it could not hide the yellowing bruises along her forearms. A bowl of soup rested on the table. She had not touched it. Dominic stopped several feet away. "Dr. Ellison says the baby is stable." "I heard her. You need to eat." Claire looked at the bowl. "I know." Dominic sat in a chair across from her. She stiffened. He stood again. "Do you want me to leave?" Her eyes lifted to his. The question seemed to unsettle her more than an order would have. "I need you to listen." Dominic remained standing. Claire looked into the fire. "When Holloway hired me, he was careful." Her voice was quiet, but it did not shake. "He knew I would refuse if he approached me directly, so the offer came through a logistics company called North Star Freight. The salary was twice what anyone else offered. The apartment was included. Health coverage started immediately. Dominic remembered the list of companies connected to Holloway. North Star had never appeared on it. He used a clean company, Dominic said. He used 7. Claire folded her hands over the blanket. For the first month, I saw him twice. He was polite. He asked about my work. He told me he respected people who understood numbers. The fire cracked softly. He knew I had worked for you, but he pretended it did not matter. He said everyone deserved a second chance. Dominic's mouth tightened. Claire noticed. Do not make that face. I did not trust him. You took the job. I was pregnant. I was being evicted. No company near Newark would return my calls. Dominic accepted the words without defending himself. Claire continued. North Star moved me to Albany. I audited ordinary freight accounts at first. Fuel costs, payroll, warehousing. Then the records changed. What did you find cash shipments hidden inside produce contracts? Payments to police officers. Pharmaceutical orders that did not match inventory. Holloway's narcotics network. Yes. Why did he give you access? He wanted to know where people were stealing from him. A bitter smile touched her mouth. He trusted my honesty because you had already punished me for it. Dominic lowered his gaze. Claire took a breath. He learned about the baby during the 2nd month. I became sick in the office. One of his assistants found the medical paperwork in my bag. Dominic's fingers curled around the back of the chair. What happened? Holloway invited me to dinner. The room around Claire seemed to disappear as memory took its place. She had sat at one end of a long table inside Holloway's estate. Rain struck the tall windows. 2 guards stood near the door. Grant Holloway poured wine into his own glass. He had thick, dark hair, careful hands, and the relaxed posture of a man who believed every person in the room belonged to him. You should have told me, he said. Claire kept her hands in her lap. My medical condition does not affect my work. Pregnancy is not a medical condition. It is also not your business. Holloway smiled. Is Vale the father? Claire did not answer. He placed a photograph on the table. Dominic was leaving a federal courthouse in Newark. Marcus walked beside him. He threw you away, Holloway said. Claire looked at the photograph. Why are you still protecting him? I am not protecting him. Then answer the question. Claire lifted her eyes. I am protecting myself from becoming useful to you. Holloway's smile disappeared. He struck her before she saw him move. The back of his hand split her lip. No one in the room reacted. Back in the safe house, Claire touched the faint scar near the corner of her mouth. That was the first time. Dominic's voice became dangerously soft, and the last, Claire looked at him. You know it was not. His face emptied of emotion. That frightened most people. Claire had always known what lived beneath it. Holloway took my phone that night, she said. He said it was for security. 2 days later, he moved me from the apartment to his estate. You were guarded. I was locked in. Why did he keep you alive? At first, because I was useful. Then because of the baby. Dominic looked at her stomach. Claire's voice hardened. He said you had built an empire around the idea that nothing mattered more than control. He wanted to find out what happened when someone else controlled the one thing you could not replace. Dominic turned toward the window. His reflection stared back at him from the dark glass. Claire watched him. You did not know. No. That does not make what you did harmless. I know. Holloway only had the chance because you made sure I had nowhere else to go. I know. The second time he said it, the words sounded less like defense and more like confession. Claire looked away. For months, Holloway forced her to audit his accounts. He moved her between rooms, changed guards, and limited every conversation. He believed fear had broken her. It had not. Each time Claire opened a ledger, she memorized something. A transfer code, a property address, a false company. the schedule of the men outside her door. She learned which guard drank during the afternoon shift. She learned where Holloway kept emergency cash. She learned that the cameras lost power for 30 seconds whenever the generator switched systems. Most importantly, she discovered a hidden archive. It contained information on Dominic's organization, photographs of warehouses, names of customs officials, private phone numbers belonging to judges, addresses connected to Vale captains and their families. Dominic moved closer. Where did he get it? I did not know at first. Claire reached toward the damaged suitcase. Dominic stopped. Let Noah check it for a tracker. He already scanned it. Claire, if Holloway placed a tracker inside, he would have found me before I reached the airport. She pulled the suitcase closer and ran her fingers along the torn lining. One night, Holloway drank too much and left the office terminal open. I copied the archive. She removed a small sewing blade from the medical kit and cut several threads. A black drive slipped into her palm. Dominic looked at it. There is another one in my boot. You carried 2 copies. I did not know which one they would find. Noah entered with an isolated computer and set it on the table. Claire inserted the drive. Folders appeared on the screen. Accounts, properties, shipments, personnel. One file was labeled Thursday Dinner. Dominic opened it. A floor plan filled the screen. The Meridian Ballroom in Manhattan, the room selected for his engagement gala. 40 tables were marked in white. Security positions appeared in blue. Catering entrances were shown in green. Dominic's seat was marked in red. A straight line connected it to a service balcony above the ballroom. Noah leaned closer. That is a firing position. Claire nodded. There are 2 more teams near the kitchen and the loading entrance. Dominic read the notes beside the plan. Russo credentials. Holloway has copies. Those are issued in Chicago. I know. Noah looked at Dominic. Someone inside Russo's operation could be compromised. Claire opened another folder. Or someone inside yours had access to both security plans. A list of payments appeared. Most moved through numbered accounts. One recipient was identified only by initials. MR. Dominic stared at the letters. Claire watched his face. You know, there are many people with those initials. Not many who approved the ballroom security rotation. Noah's voice was quiet. Marcus. Dominic did not respond. Claire opened the access log. The files had been downloaded from a private Vale terminal assigned to Marcus Reed. Dates and times filled the screen. The first transfer had occurred 7 months earlier. The same week, Claire began working for North Star Freight. Dominic's eyes moved through the records. No. Claire leaned back. No, he did not do it, or no, you do not want it to be him. We verify the source. The source is your own system. Records can be altered. Then why did Marcus send Holloway's men to the airport? Dominic looked at her. You do not know he did. No, but he blocked both of my calls. He knew I was pregnant. He knew where I was looking for work. Claire opened another file. An email appeared from a private address connected to Marcus. It contained Claire's employment history, her temporary address, and a recommendation that North Star Freight contact her. The date was 6 days after her second call. Silence filled the room. Dominic read the message again. Marcus had not merely ignored Claire. He had delivered her. Noah's face hardened. I will bring him in. Dominic raised one hand. No. Dom, if he knows she is here, Holloway knows. Claire looked at the screen. He may not know about the drives. How did you escape? Holloway went to Montreal 2 days ago. A weapons meeting. He left you guarded. 6 men. Dominic waited. Claire's expression changed. For the first time since the airport, something almost like pride moved through the exhaustion. One of them believed I could barely walk. She told them about Ruth, the older housekeeper who had spent years moving quietly through Holloway's estate. Ruth had lost a daughter to an abusive husband. She recognized the marks on Claire's neck without asking for an explanation. For weeks, Ruth smuggled food into Claire's room and left information hidden beneath folded towels. Guard schedules, keys, the location of an unlocked service window. On the night Holloway left for Montreal, Claire waited until the generators switched. 30 seconds of darkness. She left her room, crossed the laundry corridor, and used a stolen key to enter Holloway's office. She copied the final files. Then she returned to the service wing where Ruth waited with an old coat and a damaged suitcase. The coat had belonged to Ruth's husband. The suitcase came from a storage room. Ruth pressed cash into Claire's hand. "You get that baby somewhere he cannot reach," she whispered. Claire climbed through the service window. The broken frame cut her ankle. She landed badly and nearly cried out. Then she walked. 3 miles through freezing rain. A gas station attendant let her use the phone. She took a bus south, changed vehicles twice, and bought a ticket to Seattle under a false name. Dominic looked at the coat folded beside her. "Ruth is still there." Claire's voice broke slightly. "I could not take her with me. We will get her out. You cannot send men in without a plan. I did not say I would, but you thought it." Dominic looked at her. "Yes." Claire closed the file. "Holloway has backup sites. If you attack the estate and he escapes, he will move everything before you reach the gate." Dominic studied the floor plan again. "What else is on the drive? Enough to destroy his accounts. Enough to identify his officers. Enough to expose the people who protect him. And enough to destroy me." Claire met his eyes. "Yes." Noah looked between them. Dominic did not ask for the drive. Claire noticed. He walked toward the window and called Marcus. The line rang 4 times. Marcus answered. "Where are you at the airport?" "Anthony Russo is demanding an explanation. Victoria will not leave until she speaks with you." Dominic looked at Claire. Claire escaped. There was a brief silence. Escaped from where Dominic's expression did not change. "Why would you ask that Marcus recovered quickly?" "I meant escaped the shooters. She left before we reached the safe house." Claire watched Dominic carefully. "Where did she go?" Marcus asked. "We think she is heading to the Bayonne warehouse." Another pause. "I will send men." "No. Dom, if Holloway has people looking for her, we need to secure the area." "I said no." Marcus lowered his voice. "You are risking everything for a woman you removed from the organization 8 months ago." Dominic looked at the bruises on Claire's wrists. "I remember." He ended the call. Noah checked the tracking system connected to Marcus's phone. Marcus left the airport 3 minutes later. He did not drive toward Manhattan. He headed north. Claire reopened Holloway's financial records. A new transfer appeared on the screen. 6 armed contractors had just received payment. Their destination was Bayonne. Dominic stared at the confirmation. The lie had been given only to Marcus. No one spoke. The betrayal no longer lived inside initials access logs or old messages. It was moving through New Jersey in 6 black vehicles. Claire opened one final image from Holloway's archive. It showed her asleep inside a guarded bedroom, one hand resting over her stomach. A date and time were printed in the corner. Beneath the photograph, someone had written a single instruction. "If Vale survives Thursday, use the child." Dominic read the sentence. His face became very still. He looked at Noah. "Bring everyone we trust." Then he turned to Claire. Thursday just became tonight. The words remained in the room after Dominic spoke them. Outside, rain tapped against the windows of the safe house. The fire had burned low, leaving the living room in a dim, amber glow. On the computer screen, Claire's photograph remained open beneath Holloway's written order. "Use the child." Dominic closed the file. Noah was already reaching for his phone. "I can have 12 men here within an hour." "6, Dominic said. Noah looked up. "We are walking into a fortified estate. Then I want 6 men I trust, not 12 men I have to watch." Claire remained seated near the table, one hand resting against the side of her stomach. Her face had lost color, but her eyes were focused on the accounts. Dominic noticed the way she breathed. Too shallow. He crossed the room, then stopped before getting too close. "Are you in pain?" "No." "Claire?" "I said no." Her voice came sharper than she intended. She closed her eyes and took a careful breath. The baby moved. "That is all." Dominic looked at her stomach. Something in his expression shifted, but Claire turned back to the computer before he could speak. Noah stepped into the hall to make calls. Dominic remained beside the table. "You need to rest." Claire gave him a tired look. "A man has been collecting information on your organization for months. Your underboss sold him my address, your security plans, and your engagement gala. Holloway has men moving toward Bayonne because he thinks I am there. I will rest when I know what he is doing. You are 7 months pregnant, and still the person in this house who understands his accounts." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I am not questioning your ability. You are trying to remove me from the room. I am trying to keep you alive." Holloway used the same sentence every time he locked a door. Dominic went still. Claire looked down at the keys on the computer. "I know you are not him, but fear can make men sound alike." The truth in her words struck harder because she did not say them cruelly. Dominic pulled out the chair across from her and sat. "What do you need?" Claire studied him as if the question had been spoken in another language. "I need access to the full Vale network." "That is not possible." "Then you do not need my help. You are asking for the private records of every account route and employee under my control." "Yes." "You said the drive contains enough information to destroy me." "It does." "And now you want the rest." Claire leaned back. "If Marcus has been feeding Holloway information, I need to know what Marcus could see. I cannot find what he stole without knowing what was available to him." Dominic looked at the isolated computer. Giving Claire access meant opening the heart of the organization to a woman who had every reason to hate him. 8 months earlier, he would have considered the request impossible. Now he thought about the bruises around her throat. He took out his phone and entered a code. A second screen appeared. Noah returned from the hallway as Dominic placed the device beside Claire. "What are you doing? Giving her access?" Noah stopped. "To everything. Everything Marcus could reach." Claire looked at Dominic. There was no gratitude in her expression, only surprise. Dominic understood. Trust offered after betrayal did not erase the betrayal. It only arrived late. Claire connected the device to the computer. Folders filled the screen. She began working. For nearly 20 minutes, the only sound in the room was rain, the soft movement of keys, and Noah speaking quietly with men on the phone. Dominic watched Claire move through the records. Her exhaustion had not dulled her mind. She compared dates, traced transfers, and opened access logs faster than Noah's technical staff could answer her questions. Then she stopped. "What is Ironwood?" Dominic looked at the screen. "A reserve company. What does it reserve emergency funds? How much 20 million? Claire enlarged a series of transfers. Marcus moved 9 million from Ironwood during the last 14 months. Noah approached the table. "That account requires 2 approvals. He used Dominic's authorization code." Dominic looked closer. The transfers were hidden inside legitimate payments to contractors, inspectors, and freight carriers. Claire opened another document. Marcus was not just selling information. He was stealing from you. Noah's expression hardened. Why did no one see this? Because he divided the withdrawals across 37 companies. Claire tapped one line. This contractor repaired refrigeration systems at 3 of your warehouses. The company closed 4 years ago, but Marcus kept approving invoices. Dominic recognized the name. Marcus had once owned part of it through his brother. Claire continued tracing the money. The stolen funds moved into gambling accounts, luxury properties, and offshore investments. Several payments went directly to Holloway. But the numbers did not explain everything. Marcus had risked execution war and the destruction of the organization that made him powerful. $9 million was not enough. Claire opened a folder of private messages. Most had been deleted. A recovery program restored fragments from an old server. One message was addressed to Grant Holloway. Dominic refuses to name a successor. He expects me to die standing behind his chair. Another read, I built the roots. I chose the captains. He inherited the name and acts like that makes him a king. Noah looked at Dominic. He wanted your position. Dominic read the messages without reacting. Claire opened the oldest one. The date was more than 2 years earlier. Long before the Russo alliance. Long before Dominic dismissed Claire. Marcus had been speaking with Holloway while Dominic still believed their greatest threat came from outside the family. The final recovered message contained Claire's employment history. Her address was attached. So was a note. She needs work and Vale will not take her back. Approach through a clean company. Do not mention me. Claire stared at the screen. Dominic watched the color leave her face. For months, she had wondered whether accepting the North Star position had been her mistake. Now, the answer sat before her. She had not walked blindly into Holloway's hands. Someone had guided her there. Claire pushed away from the table. The chair scraped against the floor. Dominic stood, but he did not touch her. Claire. She crossed the room toward the window. Her reflection appeared against the dark glass, pale and unsteady. He knew I was pregnant. Yes. He knew I called. Yes. And he still sent my name to Holloway. Dominic's voice lowered. Yes. Claire pressed one hand against her mouth. The other remained over her stomach. Dominic wanted to promise he would make Marcus suffer. The words came easily to him. They always had. Instead, he remained silent. Claire turned toward him. You are thinking about killing him. He sent you to a man who hurt you. That is not an answer. Yes. Her eyes shone. And when he is dead, what changes? Dominic did not respond. Holloway will still have held me in that house. You will still have fired me. I will still wake up afraid that someone is outside my door. I know. No. You know how to punish people. That is not the same as knowing what they destroyed. Dominic accepted the words without moving. Claire's voice became quieter. You cannot shoot your way backward. No. You cannot kill enough men to make the last 8 months disappear. No. What do you think revenge will give me? Dominic looked at her. Nothing. The answer silenced the room. Claire had expected a defense. She had expected him to speak about justice, protection, or debt. He offered none. Dominic continued. Revenge is the only language I learned early. That does not make it the debt you are owed. Claire's lips parted slightly. Dominic moved no closer. I removed you because I was afraid of what you meant to me. I told myself it was strategy. I told myself the money would protect you. I told myself you would build another life and forget what happened here. His voice remained controlled, but there was strain beneath it. I never asked what you wanted. I never gave you the truth. I made the decision alone because that is what I do when I am frightened. I control the room. I control the people. I remove anything that can be used against me. Claire looked at him through tears she refused to release. You made me believe I meant nothing. I know. You were convincing. I needed to be. Why? Because if you believed I loved you, you might have stayed. Claire stared at him. And if I stayed, I would have chosen you. The honesty arrived too late, but it was honest. Dominic looked toward the dark window. I was not brave enough to admit that. Claire wiped one tear from her cheek. You chose the alliance. Yes. You chose power. Yes. And I paid for it. Yes. He did not soften the answer. Claire turned back to the computer. She sat slowly. I do not forgive you. I am not asking you to. Do not use what happens tonight as proof that you deserve forgiveness. I will not. Noah looked away, granting them what privacy the room could offer. Headlights appeared beyond the trees. 3 black vehicles passed through the gate. Dominic's men had arrived. A minute later, another convoy followed. This one carried New York plates. Noah reached beneath his coat. Dominic held up one hand. I invited her. The front door opened. Victoria Russo entered with 4 armed guards. She still wore the cream coat from the airport. Rain shone on the shoulders. Her dark hair remained perfectly arranged, but her expression carried the sharp restraint of a woman who had been publicly humiliated and had spent the drive deciding how much damage to cause. She looked at Dominic. You abandoned me at an airport. Yes. You sent Marcus to greet me. Yes. My father's people watched you leave with another woman. Dominic did not defend himself. Victoria removed her gloves 1 finger at a time. You may stop agreeing whenever you are prepared to explain. Her gaze moved to Claire. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Victoria noticed the bruises, the swollen ankle, and the curve beneath Claire's shirt. Her anger changed, not vanished, changed. This is Claire Bennett, Victoria said. Claire stood carefully. Victoria Russo. Victoria looked at Dominic. The accountant you assured me would never become a problem. She is not the problem. Claire's eyes flicked toward him. Victoria caught the movement. No, she said. I suspect she never was. Dominic turned the computer toward her. These are the security plans for Thursday's gala. Victoria approached the table. Her expression became cold as she studied the floor plan. Those are Russo credentials. Holloway has copies, Noah said. Victoria opened the list of catering staff. 2 names belonged to men employed by her father's private security company. She took out her phone. Dominic stopped her. Do not call Anthony yet. Victoria's gaze sharpened. You do not give me orders. If someone near him is compromised, that call warns them. She considered the possibility, then lowered the phone. Claire opened Marcus's recovered messages. Victoria read them in silence. When she reached the files containing Russo route schedules, her mouth tightened. He sold information from both families. Yes, Dominic said. My father will consider this an act of war. Your father can consider it whatever he likes after Holloway is contained. Victoria looked at him. And the marriage, Dominic did not hesitate. It is canceled. The words settled heavily. Noah remained still near the door. Claire looked at the computer. Victoria studied Dominic's face. My father will close every western route. Then he closes them. He may send men east. Then they should bring coats. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You spent 8 months negotiating this alliance. I know. You were prepared to marry me. Yes. And now you are willing to lose all of it. Dominic glanced toward Claire. Victoria followed his gaze. Claire did not look at him. A quiet understanding moved across Victoria's face. Then she released a slow breath. Good. Dominic looked back at her. Victoria removed her coat and placed it over a chair. I had no desire to marry a man who regarded the ceremony as a customs agreement. You agreed. I agreed to power. The marriage was my father's preferred wrapping. She opened the Russo security file again. We can preserve the routes without the wedding. Anthony will not accept that. My father accepts profitable ideas after he finishes pretending they were his. A faint silence followed. Victoria tapped one of the compromised names. This man reports to my cousin. I can isolate the leak without warning my father. Dominic studied her. Why help Holloway plan to murder you during an event carrying my family's name? If he succeeded, every captain on the East Coast would believe the Russos arranged it. Victoria's expression hardened. I dislike being framed for murders I did not approve. Claire almost smiled. Victoria noticed. You find that amusing? A little. Good. I was beginning to think everyone in New Jersey had lost perspective. The tension in the room eased for one breath. Then Noah's phone vibrated. He answered, listened, and looked at Dominic. The men sent to Bayonne arrived at the warehouse. They found it empty. Did they contact Holloway? We intercepted a short call. He knows the location was false. Dominic looked toward the windows. He knows Marcus was tested. He may know Claire is here, Noah said. Claire returned to the computer. Holloway will move his money before he moves himself. She searched the active accounts. Victoria stood beside her. What are you looking for emergency transfers? Holloway does not trust banks, but he trusts cash even less when he is under attack. Claire opened several accounts. Nothing had moved. That disturbed her. He is waiting. For what? Dominic asked. For confirmation that you are coming. Noah spread a map across the table. Holloway's estate stood deep in the Catskill Mountains, nearly 3 hours north. The property was surrounded by forest and accessible by 2 paved roads. Claire shook her head. There are 3 roads. Noah looked at her. The county map shows 2. There is a service route on the western side. It runs through an abandoned quarry. She pulled the property plans from the drive. The road is hidden beneath tree cover. Holloway uses it for shipments he does not want guards at the front gate to see. Victoria leaned over the map. My trucks can block the southern road and the quarry exit. Dominic looked at her. You brought trucks. I came from an airport with a convoy. I did not expect to spend the evening discussing feelings. Claire looked at the plans. There is also a drainage tunnel beneath the eastern wall. Noah enlarged the image. Too narrow for a full team. Then do not send a full team. Dominic watched Claire trace the compound with one finger. Her knowledge was precise. She remembered camera angles, doors, stairwells, and guard stations. Holloway had confined her inside that property for months. Now every locked room had become part of the map she used against him. Dominic said, You stay here. Claire did not look up. No, you are not going to the estate. I did not say I was. She turned the computer toward him. The camera system payroll server and emergency accounts use the same internal network. I can reach them from here if Noah's technical team gives me a secure connection. Noah considered it. She may be able to disable the alarms. Or lock doors, Claire said. Or track Holloway if he activates an escape account. Dominic's instinct was immediate. Remove her from the operation. Place guards around the room. Keep every danger beyond her reach. He saw Claire reading the decision in his face. You do not get to turn me into a helpless woman because helpless women are easier for you to protect. Dominic held her gaze. The old answer rose first. It is not your decision. He let it die before reaching his mouth. All right. Claire blinked. Dominic looked at Noah. Give her what she needs. Noah nodded. Victoria studied Dominic with quiet interest. He ignored her. The men gathered in the dining room while Noah explained the compound layout. Weapons were checked, routes were assigned, communication channels were secured. Claire remained at the computer comparing Holloway's records with the Vale network. Dominic entered the living room alone. She sensed him behind her. You should eat before we leave. You sound like the doctor. She was convincing. Claire reached for the bowl of soup. It had gone cold. Dominic took it without asking and carried it to the kitchen. He returned with a fresh bowl. He placed it on the table and stepped away. Claire ate several spoonfuls. Dominic waited near the fire. "You said the baby moved. She does that. Does it hurt sometimes?" He nodded, though he did not know what to do with the answer. Claire watched him. "You can ask." His gaze moved toward her stomach. "Ask what?" "What you have been trying not to ask since the airport." Dominic's voice lowered. "Is she healthy?" "The doctor said she is. Before today. The examinations were normal until Holloway stopped letting me attend them." Dominic looked toward the floor. Claire placed the spoon down. "She is strong." He looked back at her. "Like you." Claire gave him a tired expression. "Do not make me into something noble. I was terrified every day. Being afraid does not make you weak." The baby moved beneath her hand. Claire inhaled. Dominic straightened. "What happened?" "She kicked." He stared at the place beneath Claire's palm. For once, Dominic Vale looked uncertain. Claire took his hand. He did not move as she guided it toward her stomach. The moment his palm touched her, his breathing changed. The baby moved again, a small, undeniable pressure against his hand. Dominic closed his eyes. Gunfire had never made him tremble. Neither had courtrooms, funerals, or the men who placed prices on his head. But his fingers shook now. Claire saw it. "This does not make us a family," she said. "I know. It does not mean I forgive you. I know." Her eyes lowered to his hand. "Come back alive anyway." Dominic looked at her. For one fragile second, the room held everything they had lost and everything neither of them was ready to name. Then Noah appeared in the doorway. "The convoy is ready." Dominic removed his hand slowly. He picked up his coat. At the entrance, he looked back. Claire was watching him from beside the fire. Dominic opened the door. Cold rain moved into the house. He stepped outside with Noah and 6 men he still trusted. Behind him, Claire returned to the computer. A warning flashed across the screen. The access codes to Holloway's compound had changed less than an hour earlier. Claire reached for the communication device. "Dominic." He stopped beside the waiting SUV. Her voice came through his earpiece. Marcus warned him. "The entire security system has been reset." Dominic looked north toward the dark road beyond the gate. "Then find me another way inside." Claire heard the calm in Dominic's voice through the communication device. It was not the calm of a man who felt safe. It was the calm he used when fear had already sharpened into purpose. The convoy moved north beneath a sky without stars. Rain followed them out of New Jersey, striking the roofs of the black vehicles as they crossed into New York. The highways narrowed. City lights disappeared behind thick forests and long black ridges. Dominic sat in the first SUV with Noah beside him. Noah had a tablet open across his knees. The original security map of Holloway's compound glowed on the screen, every camera and gate marked in pale blue. One by one, the markings turned red. "Every access point is locked," Noah said. "Main gate service entrance, lower garage." Dominic looked through the windshield. Marcus knows the standard response. He helped design it. From the safe house, Claire searched the older records stored on Holloway's copied servers. Victoria stood behind her with a phone in one hand. She had placed Russo trucks along the southern roads and near the abandoned quarry. Her father still did not know she had canceled the marriage or joined Dominic's operation. One of her guards watched the windows. Another stood at the door. Claire ignored both men. Her eyes moved across the old property files. The main estate had been built over a private hunting lodge from the 1930s. Holloway had added walls, cameras, generators, and underground storage. But the original structure had belonged to a wealthy family that wanted servants and supplies moved without disturbing guests. That meant hidden access. Claire opened a faded county document. There she whispered. Victoria leaned closer. What? A water system. Claire enlarged the image. A drainage line ran beneath the eastern forest, crossed under the outer wall, and connected to a maintenance room below the main building. She touched the communication control. Dominic. There is a drainage tunnel on the east side. The entrance is north of the lower road near a stone culvert. Noah searched the map. I do not see it. It was built before the compound. Holloway never added it to the current plans. How wide enough for one person at a time? Dominic looked at Noah. How far from the wall? Claire checked the scale. About 50 yards. Send the location. The coordinates appeared on Noah's tablet. Dominic ordered the convoy off the highway. They traveled another mile through a narrow mountain road, then turned onto an abandoned logging path. Branches scraped against the sides of the vehicles. The forest closed around them. 2 miles from Holloway's estate, the convoy stopped. Dominic stepped into the rain. The air smelled of wet soil, pine, and distant smoke. Somewhere beyond the trees stood the man who had imprisoned Claire, threatened his child, and purchased the loyalty of the brother Dominic had chosen for himself. Noah came around the SUV and handed Dominic a vest. Dominic put it on beneath his coat. You stay near the communications team, Noah said. Dominic looked at him. Noah held up both hands. I had to try. 6 men formed near the edge of the road. Each had worked with Dominic for years. None had been told the full reason for the operation. They only knew Holloway had compromised the Vale organization and that Marcus Reed could no longer be trusted. Dominic studied their faces. If anyone wants to leave, do it now. No one moved. One man checked his weapon. Another tightened the strap across his shoulder. Noah gave a small nod. Dominic turned toward the forest. They disappeared between the trees. At the safe house, Claire watched their location move across the map. The small signals passed through the eastern woods toward the drainage entrance. Her fingers hovered over the controls. She could hear every breath through the communication channel. Wet branches cracked beneath boots. Rain struck leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a guard dog barked. Claire remembered that sound. Holloway kept 2 dogs near the east wall. He released them after midnight and returned them to their kennels before dawn. She looked at the time. They may have dogs near the tunnel, she said. Dominic's voice came through softly. How many 2? Noah signaled the team to stop. A low growl moved through the darkness ahead. One of the men reached for his weapon. Dominic lowered the barrel with one hand. No gunfire. Noah removed a cloth packet from his bag. Claire had included sedatives among the supplies prepared before they left. The first dog emerged between the trees, its body tense, rain shining along its black coat. The second followed several feet behind. Noah tossed 2 pieces of meat toward the path. The dogs hesitated. The larger one sniffed the ground, then ate. Within minutes, both animals became unsteady and lowered themselves beneath the trees. The team moved past them. The drainage entrance was hidden behind a wall of ivy and broken stone. Dominic pulled aside the vines. A rusted metal grate covered the opening. Noah examined the lock. New chain. Marcus knew enough to cover old access points, Dominic said. One of the men cut through it. The grate opened with a low metallic groan. Cold air moved out of the tunnel. Dominic entered first. The passage was barely tall enough for him to stand. Water reached the soles of his boots. Concrete walls pressed close on both sides. Noah followed. The rest of the team entered one by one. They moved in darkness, guided only by the pale light of their equipment. Claire watched the signals travel beneath the wall. For several minutes, nothing moved inside Holloway's network. Then a warning appeared. Motion detected in eastern maintenance line. Claire's stomach tightened. Dominic, stop. The team froze. What is it? He added a sensor. Can you disable it? I am trying. Claire opened the security panel. The sensor had been connected to a local alarm, not the main network. She could see it, but she could not control it remotely. A timer appeared on the screen. 20 seconds. They know you are in the tunnel. Dominic looked up. A small red light had appeared in the concrete ceiling. Move, he ordered. The team ran. Gunfire erupted from an opening above them. Bullets struck water and concrete. One man fell. Noah dragged him behind a support column as Dominic fired toward the elevated platform. The narrow tunnel magnified every sound. Claire heard shouting gunfire and someone breathing through pain. Dominic. No answer. She gripped the edge of the table. Victoria looked at her. Keep the channel clear. Claire forced herself to breathe. On the screen, 2 of the signals remained near the center of the tunnel. The others moved toward the maintenance room. Noah, Claire said. A strained voice answered. I am here. What happened? Calvin is down. Is he alive? A pause. No. Claire closed her eyes. She had never met Calvin. She had only heard his name when Noah assigned positions. Still, the silence after his signal disappeared felt personal. Another burst of gunfire came through the channel. Noah grunted. Dominic's voice cut through. Noah is hit. Claire looked at the map. Where shoulder? I am still useful, Noah said. Dominic pulled him behind the concrete wall. Blood spread through Noah's coat. You stay here. I did not climb through half a mountain to sit in a drain. You are losing blood. I have lost more. Dominic tore open a medical packet and pressed bandages against Noah's shoulder. Above them, footsteps moved along the platform. The guards were repositioning. Claire searched the old blueprints. There is a valve room 20 feet ahead. The door should open into the lower storage area. Dominic looked toward the end of the tunnel. A steel door stood beyond a section of exposed pipe. The guards fired again. One of Dominic's men returned fire while the others carried Noah forward. They reached the door, locked. Dominic struck the handle. It is reinforced. Claire examined Holloway's utility system. The valve room had once been connected to the fire controls. She entered an old service code. Nothing happened. She tried another. Still nothing. Dominic placed a small explosive charge near the lock. Claire saw the command signal appear. Wait. He paused. What? If you open it with force, the lower-level alarm activates. They already know we are here. The alarm locks the internal stairwells. You will be trapped below. Dominic removed his hand from the charge. Claire searched the codes Holloway used for shipments. He liked numbers connected to dates. Birthdays, property purchases, deaths. She remembered the dinner where he had spoken about his father. The old man had died on November 8th. Claire entered 1108. The door clicked open. Dominic looked at the panel. You remembered his code. I remembered everything. The team moved through the valve room. Noah leaned against the wall while one of the men secured the wound. I can walk, he said. Dominic looked at the blood on his coat. You can stay conscious. That too. They entered the lower storage corridor. Above them, alarms began sounding throughout the estate. Holloway knew the tunnel had been breached. Claire switched to the camera network. Most feeds had been cut. The remaining cameras showed guards moving through the main building. Some headed toward the lower level. Others moved vehicles from the western garage. Holloway is preparing to leave, Claire said. Victoria placed a call. Her voice became cold and precise. Western Road. Be ready. At the compound, 3 SUVs left through the quarry exit. Russo trucks moved across the road, blocking the narrow pass. The first Holloway vehicle stopped. The second struck it from behind. Men opened doors and raised weapons. Victoria's team fired from positions behind the trucks. The firefight echoed across the valley. Dominic heard it faintly through the stone walls. Victoria has the Western Road, Claire said. Is Holloway in the convoy? Claire switched between camera feeds. I cannot see the passengers. She opened the financial system. No emergency accounts had moved. He is still inside. Dominic led the team toward the central stairwell. The door was locked. Claire accessed the building controls. This lock responded to the system. She opened it. The team climbed. The first-floor corridor was dark except for emergency lights near the ceiling. Water began falling from the fire suppression pipes. Claire had activated the system. Alarms screamed. Doors released throughout the building. Guards shouted over one another as radios failed beneath the noise. Dominic moved through the confusion. 2 men appeared near the kitchen. He fired before either could raise a weapon. One fell. The second retreated through the pantry. Noah followed despite the blood soaking his shoulder. The guard turned and fired. Noah dropped behind a counter. Dominic crossed the doorway and struck the man before he could shoot again. The weapon fell. Dominic drove him against the wall. "Where is Holloway?" The guard spat blood. "Waiting for you." Dominic released him only long enough to end the threat. Claire watched through a camera above the kitchen. She saw Dominic step over the body. His face showed nothing. For 8 months she had imagined him in moments like this. Dominic arriving with armed men. Dominic killing Holloway. Dominic destroying every room where she had been confined. In those fantasies, revenge had felt clean. Watching it now, Claire understood how much blood remained after the fantasy ended. She moved to the next camera. 2 men beyond the dining room, she said, one near the windows, one behind the east doorway. Dominic signaled the team. They entered from separate sides. The first guard fired toward Noah. Dominic shot him from across the room. The second ran toward the staircase. One of Dominic's men caught him before he reached it. The upper floor was nearly empty. That troubled Claire. "Holloway keeps at least 20 men on this property. We counted 12, Noah said. Then the others are below." Dominic looked toward the far end of the hall. A service elevator stood beside a locked office door. Claire remembered Holloway using the elevator after meetings. It did not appear on the original plans. "There is another level beneath the basement." Noah looked at the tablet. Not on the map. Holloway built it after he bought the estate. He kept his private records there. Dominic pressed the elevator control. No response. Claire searched the internal network. The elevator had been disabled from Holloway's office. She found the manual controls and restored power. The doors opened. Dominic entered alone. Noah followed. Dominic turned. "You stay here." Noah looked at him. "I am not having this argument again. You can barely lift your arm. I only need one." Dominic pressed the lower control. The doors closed. The elevator descended. Claire followed its position through the system. The signal stopped beneath the visible foundation. The doors opened into a stone corridor lined with steel. At the far end, warm light spilled from an office. Dominic walked forward. Marcus Reed stood inside. His jacket was open. A gun rested in his right hand. Grant Holloway stood near the fireplace behind him holding a glass of bourbon. The office was elegant in the way Holloway preferred. Dark wood, leather chairs, art chosen for price rather than beauty. On one wall, monitors displayed the estate. On another, shelves held paper files. Dominic entered. Noah remained near the doorway. Marcus gave a tired smile. "You always did like dramatic entrances." Dominic looked at the man who had stood beside him for 11 years. The face was familiar. The person behind it no longer was. "You sent Claire to him." Marcus's smile faded. "I sent her to a job. You knew what he was. I knew she needed money. You knew she was pregnant." Marcus looked toward Holloway. That part became useful. Dominic took one step closer. Marcus raised the gun. Noah lifted his own weapon. Holloway held up one hand. "Let them speak." Dominic ignored him. "You blocked her calls. You had made your decision. I did not tell you to erase her. You did not have to." Marcus's voice sharpened. "You wanted her gone. I made certain she stayed gone. You sold her location. I solved a problem." Dominic's gaze became colder. "She was never a problem." Marcus laughed. "She was the only problem you ever had." Holloway moved toward the desk. That is why we are all here. He placed a tablet on the polished wood. Files filled the screen. Vale accounts, Russo routes, photographs of judges, customs officials, captains, and warehouses, copies of everything your accountant stole, Holloway said. If my heart stops, the files go to the federal government, 3 newspapers, and every organization that wants your ports. Dominic looked at him. What do you want? Holloway smiled. You know. From the safe house, Claire listened. The communication channel carried every word. Victoria stood beside her. Neither woman moved. Holloway poured another drink. Claire comes back to me. Dominic's expression did not change. Holloway continued. She finishes the accounts. She gives birth under my protection. Your daughter grows up somewhere you cannot reach her. Claire gripped the table. Dominic looked at the tablet. Then he looked at Holloway. You still do not understand. Understand what she is not property I can return. Holloway's smile weakened. You abandoned her. Yes. You left her with nothing. Yes. And now you pretend she matters because another man touched what belonged to you. Dominic's voice remained quiet. She does not belong to me. Marcus shifted his grip on the weapon. Holloway studied Dominic. Your empire survives if you give me one woman. Even if Claire chose never to see me again, I would burn every root I own before I gave you her address. At the safe house, Claire closed her eyes. For the first time, Dominic was not promising to keep her. He was protecting her right to leave him. Holloway's face hardened. You built everything around control. I did. And now you would lose it for her. No. Dominic's gaze became still. I would lose it because it was never worth what I did to keep it. Marcus fired. Dominic moved as the bullet passed his shoulder. Noah shot from the doorway. The round struck Marcus in the leg. Marcus fell against the desk. Holloway reached beneath it for a weapon. Dominic fired. The bullet struck the wood beside Holloway's hand. Holloway rolled behind a stone column and returned fire. Glass shattered. Noah dropped to one knee, his injured shoulder striking the wall. Dominic moved behind the desk. Marcus crawled toward his fallen gun. Dominic kicked it away. Marcus looked up at him, pain twisting his face. You kill me and prove I was right. Dominic stood over him. You were wrong long before tonight. I built this family. You sold it. I gave you 11 years, and you decided loyalty should be rewarded with a crown. Marcus laughed through clenched teeth. You inherited the name. I did the work. You could have left, and become what another man carrying your orders. Marcus reached toward his ankle. Claire saw the movement through the office camera. Dominic's second weapon. Marcus pulled the gun. Dominic fired once. The shot struck Marcus in the chest. He fell against the floor. For a moment, Dominic looked down at him. 11 years ended without ceremony. Holloway ran toward a private door behind the fireplace. Claire entered the security system. The door began to open. She reversed the command. It locked. Holloway struck the panel. Dominic crossed the office. Holloway turned with a knife. The blade caught Dominic across the shoulder. Dominic drove him into the wall. They crashed against the desk. Holloway fought without discipline, but with the desperation of a man who had never imagined losing. He pressed the knife toward Dominic's throat. Blood ran across Dominic's collar. You think she will love you after this, Holloway said. Dominic forced the blade away. No. He twisted Holloway's wrist. The knife turned. I think she will decide for herself. The blade entered Holloway's chest. His body went still. Dominic released him. Holloway fell beside the shattered tablet. The office became silent except for the alarms above them. At the safe house, an alert filled Claire's screen. Emergency transfer initiated. $30 million began moving from Holloway's reserve accounts toward 12 separate recipients. Mercenaries, lieutenants, weapons suppliers. A final order had been triggered by the loss of Holloway's biometric signal. Claire looked at the timer. 3 minutes. Dominic, his death activated a payment. Noah entered the office and pressed a bandage against Dominic's shoulder, to whom Dominic asked, "Everyone who can continue the attack." Claire opened the transfer system. The first password failed. The second failed. Her hands began to shake. Victoria placed one hand on the back of Claire's chair. "Breathe." Claire looked at the account numbers. Holloway had used a sequence she recognized, not a birthday, a shipment code. He numbered his most valuable routes according to the dates they first became profitable. Claire remembered the ledgers from Albany, Boston, Buffalo, Montreal. She entered the sequence. The system opened. 40 seconds remained. Claire redirected the transfer. The funds could not be returned without a second authorization, but they could be sent to a frozen seizure account attached to an old federal investigation. She entered the destination. The screen requested final confirmation. 20 seconds. Claire pressed the key. The transfer completed. $30 million disappeared from Holloway's control. Across New York, hired teams watched expected payments fail to arrive. Phones went unanswered. Vehicles turned away from Vale warehouses. Men who had promised loyalty to Holloway abandoned the promise when the money vanished. Victoria received confirmation from the quarry road. The final convoy had surrendered. Claire leaned back. Her pulse beat painfully in her throat. "It is done." Dominic looked at Holloway's body. "No." His voice came through the channel. "It is stopped." Claire understood the difference. By dawn, the estate belonged to silence. Dominic's men collected the records, removed the wounded, and secured the remaining guards. Calvin's body was carried from the drainage tunnel beneath a dark covering. Noah refused medical transport until Dominic agreed to ride in the same vehicle. They left the mountain as the first pale light touched the trees. The return drive took nearly 3 hours. Claire did not sleep. She changed clothes, packed the damaged suitcase, and placed the folder containing Holloway's accounts beside the door. Victoria watched her from the kitchen. "Are you leaving?" Claire closed the suitcase. "Yes." "Where I do not know." Victoria looked toward the windows. "Dominic will try to stop you." Claire rested one hand on the handle. Then nothing changed. The convoy arrived shortly after sunrise. Dominic entered the house with dried blood on his collar and a clean bandage beneath his shirt. His face was pale from blood loss. Noah had already been taken to a medical room in the rear of the house. Dominic stopped when he saw the suitcase. "Holloway is dead," he said. Claire looked at the bandage near his shoulder. "And Marcus dead." She nodded. Dominic waited. He had destroyed the man who imprisoned her. He had ended the betrayal inside his organization. He had returned alive because she had asked him to. None of it gave him the right to expect her gratitude. Claire lifted the suitcase. "I cannot stay here. This house is secure." Her eyes hardened. So was Holloway's. Dominic said nothing. That was the word he used every time he locked the door. Secure, protected, safe. This is different. Is it? Yes. Because you are the one controlling it. The question stopped him. Claire moved toward the entrance. "I will not go from his cage into yours because yours has clean sheets and better food." Dominic looked at the security panel beside the door. The locks were active. 2 guards stood outside. His first instinct was to order them to remain in place. To tell Claire she was exhausted. To tell her Holloway's men might still be alive. To tell her the child needed protection. Every reason sounded reasonable. Every reason still ended with him deciding for her. Dominic entered the security code. The locks released throughout the house. The sound traveled down the hallway. One door after another opened. He called the guards inside. "No one stops her." Claire looked at him. Dominic stepped away from the entrance. "You are right." Morning light spilled through the open doorway. Beyond it, the road curved between wet trees and disappeared toward the gate. Claire stood at the threshold with her suitcase in one hand. For the first time since Claire had returned to his life, Dominic did not place himself between her and the door. The rain had stopped. Morning light spread across the wet stone outside the safe house, turning every branch silver. Claire stood at the threshold with her suitcase in one hand and the other resting beneath the curve of her stomach. Dominic remained several feet behind her. No order came. No guard moved. No engine started. The silence belonged to her. Claire looked down the road. She had imagined this moment many times while locked inside Holloway's estate. In those dreams, freedom had felt simple. A door opened. She walked through it. The fear ended behind her. Now the door was open and fear followed without needing permission. She did not know where to go. Her old apartment was gone. Her job no longer existed. Holloway's surviving men might still be searching for her. Every hotel room would feel temporary. Every unfamiliar car would look like a threat. Dominic understood what her silence meant. He crossed the room slowly and placed a black folder on the table near the entrance. Claire looked back. "What is that, options?" She did not move. Dominic opened the folder himself, then stepped away. Inside were property documents, bank records, medical information, and several sealed envelopes. Claire approached carefully. The first document transferred ownership of a small house in Princeton to her name. The second showed an independent account funded with enough money to support her and the baby for years. The third contained health insurance information under a legal company with no public connection to Dominic. The final page listed the contact information for a private security firm based in Connecticut. Claire looked up. "You prepared this while you were gone?" "Noah started the documents before we left. Victoria finished them. You bought me a house. I bought a house and placed it in your name. That is the same thing." "No." Dominic's voice remained quiet. "A gift can be taken back. This cannot." Claire turned another page. "There is no mortgage, no. No Vale company listed anywhere, no. And the security firm. They do not work for me. Do they know who you are? Everyone knows who I am." "That was not my question." Dominic accepted the correction. "They know. They also know you are their client, not me." Claire closed the folder. "And if I take this and never speak to you again, the house is still yours, the money still yours, the security your decision." Her hand tightened around the edge of the folder. "What about the baby?" Dominic looked at her stomach. "I will provide whatever she needs." "That is money." "Yes. I am not asking about money." He understood. The answer took longer. "I want to be her father." Claire watched his face. "But wanting something does not make it mine," he continued. "Not her. Not your time. Not a place in your house." The words sounded practiced only because Dominic had spent the drive home forcing himself to understand them. Claire searched for the hidden condition. There was none. "You would accept that, no." His honesty stopped her. Dominic looked toward the open door. "I would hate it. I would think about changing your mind every day. I would want to know where she slept, what made her laugh, whether she looked like you." He returned his gaze to Claire. "But I would accept it." Claire looked away before he could see what moved through her expression. The house remained still around them. Noah was being treated in a room at the rear of the property. Victoria had left before sunrise to speak with her father. The guards had moved beyond the trees. Claire set the suitcase down. "I am not staying here." Dominic nodded. "I know. I am not moving into your penthouse." "I know. I do not want your men inside whatever house I choose. They will not be." She studied him. "You agree very quickly. I have spent too much time agreeing only after the damage is done." Claire looked at the Princeton documents again. The address belonged to a quiet residential street near a park and a medical center. She knew the area. Old trees, brick houses, families walking dogs in the evening. It looked like a place where a child might grow without hearing gunfire through the walls. "I want to see it first," she said. "The keys are in the envelope. You are not coming." "All right." Claire waited for an argument. None came. She picked up the folder and closed the suitcase. When she crossed the threshold, Dominic remained inside. Her steps were slow because of her injured ankle. She moved toward a sedan waiting beyond the gate driven by a woman from the independent security firm. At the end of the path, Claire stopped. Dominic stood in the doorway behind her. He did not call her name. He did not ask when she would return. Claire turned. "I will contact you after the doctor checks the baby again." Dominic's expression softened by a fraction. "Thank you." She got into the car. The driver pulled away. Dominic watched until the vehicle disappeared behind the trees. Only then did he close the door. 2 days later, Victoria Russo sat across from her father in the private dining room of a Manhattan hotel. Anthony Russo was 64, silver-haired, broad-chested, and furious in the controlled manner of men who believed anger was most useful when served cold. The canceled engagement announcement had already created rumors. 3 crime families had called Chicago before breakfast. Anthony placed both hands on the table. "Dominic Vale embarrassed us." Victoria poured coffee. "Marcus Reed sold our security plans to Holloway." "That does not answer me. It answers the question that matters. My daughter was left standing in an airport while Vale chased another woman." Victoria stirred the coffee without drinking it. "You arranged a marriage, not a love story. I arranged power, and the power is still available." Anthony's eyes narrowed. "Without blood tying the families together, the alliance is temporary. Every alliance is temporary. That is why contracts have renewal dates." He leaned back. "You sound like him." "No, Dominic would have threatened you by now." Anthony almost smiled. Victoria placed the revised agreement on the table. The Russo organization would retain access to Vale ports. Dominic would keep control of the eastern terminals. Profits would be divided according to volume. No marriage, no shared inheritance, no interference in personal affairs. Anthony read the first page. He agreed to this. He wrote it. "And you trust him." "I trust that Holloway nearly killed him using our credentials. Dominic understands the cost of damaged cooperation." Anthony looked toward the city beyond the windows. What about the woman Victoria thought of Claire at the safe house, bruised and exhausted, still reading accounts while armed men prepared for war? She survived Holloway Marcus and Dominic's judgment. That was not my question. It is my answer. Anthony signed the agreement before lunch. 3 days later, Dominic returned to the Jersey City office. The wall-sized map still displayed shipping routes across the East Coast. The same lights blinked over Newark, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Chicago. But the room no longer felt permanent. Marcus's chair stood empty beside the conference table. Noah sat in another chair with his left arm secured against his chest. His face was pale, and pain medication had made him less patient than usual. "You should be in bed," Dominic said. "You should be in a hospital." I was examined. So was I. The doctor told me to rest. I chose to ignore him in a comfortable chair. Dominic placed a stack of personnel files on the table. Noah looked at them. "What are those?" "Every captain. Marcus approved during the last 5 years. You think they are all compromised?" "No." "Then why remove them?" "I am not removing them." Noah raised an eyebrow. Dominic opened the first file. "I am checking what they were promised, what they were paid, and which information they could access." "That sounds responsible." Dominic gave him a flat look. Noah leaned back carefully. "I am not used to it. They spent the afternoon rebuilding the organization from the inside. 3 captains were found to have received money through Marcus's companies. 2 disappeared before Dominic's men reached them. 1 agreed to provide names in exchange for his life. Dominic removed private files containing the addresses of employees' families. He divided access to security routes so no single underboss could view the entire system. He created a review process for dismissals and blacklisting. No person could be pushed out of the Vale companies by one order from one man. Noah watched Dominic feed old files into the fireplace. You becoming a better person? No. Good. I was worried the blood loss affected your judgment. Dominic placed Claire's former employment file into the fire. I am becoming a man who knows what his decisions cost. The paper curled. Her name disappeared into the flame. A week passed before Claire contacted him. The message arrived just after midnight. Doctor appointment. Tuesday at 10. You may come if you wait outside until I ask for you. Dominic read it 3 times. He typed a reply. I will be there. Then he deleted it. He tried again. Thank you. He deleted that too. Finally, he wrote, Understood. On Tuesday morning, Dominic arrived at the Princeton Medical Clinic 20 minutes early. He came alone. No convoy waited outside. No armed men stood near the entrance. He parked across the street and entered through the front doors like any other patient's family member. Claire sat in the waiting area wearing a blue sweater and dark pants. The bruises on her face had faded. Her ankle was still wrapped, but she no longer needed a cane. She noticed Dominic's empty hands. No guards. They are 2 streets away. Claire's expression changed. You said no guards. You said none inside the house. I meant near me. Dominic nodded. I will send them away. He took out his phone and made the call without arguing. Claire watched him. You could have lied. Yes, but you did not. No. The receptionist called Claire's name. She stood. Dominic remained seated. Claire walked toward the examination hall, then stopped at the door. You can come in. He rose. The room was small and warm. A monitor stood beside the examination table. Dominic took the chair near the wall while the doctor prepared the ultrasound. Claire lifted her sweater. The screen filled with shifting gray shapes. Dominic tried to understand what he was seeing. Then the doctor pointed. There is her head. Dominic leaned forward. The outline of a face appeared. Small, unfinished, real. The doctor moved the instrument. Her heart rate is strong. Growth looks normal. Dominic's eyes remained on the screen. Claire watched him instead. He looked less like the man who controlled the ports than someone standing at the edge of a world he did not know how to enter. Have you chosen a name? The doctor asked. Claire shook her head. Not yet. Dominic looked at her. We have time. The word hung between them. Claire could have corrected him. She did not. After the appointment, they sat inside Dominic's parked car while rain moved gently across the windshield. Neither seemed ready to leave. Claire held the ultrasound picture in both hands. I still wake up expecting someone outside the door. Dominic looked ahead. I can arrange someone to check the street. That is not what I am telling you. He turned toward her. Claire stared down at the photograph. I know Holloway is dead. I know his accounts are gone. I know the house is secure. My body does not know. Dominic listened. Sometimes I hear a car stop and I cannot breathe. Sometimes I wake up and forget where I am. I keep a chair beneath the bedroom handle even though the door locks. Dominic's jaw tightened. Claire noticed. Do not make that face. What face? The one where you start deciding who else needs to die. He lowered his eyes. I am trying not to. You were afraid of losing me, Claire said. I was afraid of being killed. Those are not the same pain. I know. Do you? Yes. She waited. In the past, Dominic would have explained himself. He would have spoken about his father, his enemies, or the danger surrounding his name. Now he allowed her words to remain larger than his defense. Claire looked through the rain. I do not know if I will ever forgive you completely. I am not asking you to. What are you asking for? Dominic considered the answer. A chance to be present when you want me present. That might not be often. I will take what you offer. And if I decide you cannot be in the delivery room, I will wait outside. If I do not want her living near your world, then my world stays away from her. Claire turned toward him. You say that as if it is easy. It is not. His honesty softened something she had been holding tightly. Dominic continued. I want to tell you I can make everything safe. I cannot. I want to tell you I will never make another wrong decision. I cannot promise that either. Then what can you promise that I will not hide the decision from you? Claire looked down at the ultrasound picture again. That is a very small promise. It is the only kind I trust right now. The rain slowed. Claire opened the car door. Dominic did not ask when he would see her again. Before stepping out, she looked back. There is another appointment next Thursday. I will wait for the message. You can come. Dominic nodded once. I will be there. Over the following weeks, their lives moved closer without fully joining. Dominic never entered the Princeton house without permission. He delivered groceries and left them on the porch when Claire did not invite him inside. He attended medical appointments when she asked. He missed one dinner because a problem at the port required his attention. Instead of inventing an excuse, he called and told her exactly where he was. Claire did not like the truth, but she trusted it more than a polished lie. She began working again from home, reviewing legal freight accounts for Victoria's companies. The work gave her money she earned herself and a reason to wake each morning that had nothing to do with fear. Victoria called twice a week. Their conversations began with business and usually ended with Victoria complaining about New Jersey coffee. Noah visited once with his arm still in a sling. He brought a stuffed bear larger than the crib. Claire looked at it. Where is the baby supposed to sleep? Noah considered the bear. On the floor, apparently. Dominic arrived 10 minutes later carrying a box containing the crib Claire had ordered. He found the living room covered with wooden pieces, screws, and instruction pages. Claire stood in the middle of the disorder. You said this was easy, she told Noah. I said it looked easy. Dominic removed his coat. Claire looked at him. Can you build a crib I control 7 shipping terminals? That was not my question. No. Good. At least one of you is honest. Noah left before they could ask him to help. Dominic sat on the floor and opened the instructions. For 2 hours, he and Claire assembled the frame. Dominic installed one side backward. Claire stared at it. You built the entrance on the outside. I followed the diagram. You held the page upside down. He looked at the paper. Claire laughed. The sound was sudden and warm. Dominic stopped moving. Her smile faded slightly. But I forgot what that sounded like. Claire lowered her eyes. Do not make it into something bigger than it is. I will not. They took the crib apart and started again. Near midnight, the final screw turned into place. Dominic stood and tested the rails. The crib remained steady. Claire leaned against the doorway. You look proud. It survived construction. That is a low standard. It is a beginning. The words left his mouth before he considered them. Claire looked at the crib, then at him. Dominic picked up his coat. I should go. Claire walked him to the front door. The night outside was cold and still. His car waited near the curb. Dominic stepped onto the porch. I will see you Thursday. Claire nodded. He walked down the path. Dominic. He turned. Claire stood inside the open doorway, one hand beneath her stomach. There is coffee in the kitchen. He waited. She looked toward the completed crib. You can stay for breakfast. Dominic did not move closer yet. "Is that what you want?" Claire considered the question carefully. "For tonight." He walked back toward the porch. Claire remained in the doorway until he reached her. Then she stepped aside. Dominic crossed the threshold only after she gave him room to enter. The door remained open behind them for several seconds. Claire looked out at the quiet street, the wet pavement, and the dark trees moving softly in the wind. Then she closed it herself.